Welcome back to the intersection. So glad to have you here for another traffic report. John, I was on perusing your Facebook, man, and I saw a post that just really stuck out at me. You were talking about J. Cole and role models. Man, fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. And you introduced me to J. Cole. I had never heard of J. Cole
Right.
until just, I guess, with all this
like a month
Kendrick
ago, a couple months
Lamar
ago,
and
yep.
J. Cole and what's
The beef Drake.
Drake
Yep.
popped off, and I still haven't heard a complete Drake song. So
It's all right, you ain't missing nothing.
And as you introduced, I was listening to one of the songs, and he kind of had this ode to Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
And I understood, and he was like, man,
First
when we
things
lost Uncle Phil from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, man, like, I don't know. He's like, his goal was like, man, if he ever got someone that he was involved with and truly loved, that he was going to be the kind of father and husband that Uncle Phil was. And I was like, I feel that because in my life, in my childhood, Heathcliff Huxtable, Bill Cosby from the Cosby Show.
Cosby Show, yeah.
Plays such a huge role. One of the reasons why dinner time is so big for my family is because the Huxtables used to sit around the table and eat dinner. And so that became my definition of rich. And I lamented. In my ability to connect and identify with the music, I lamented. And I wrote this post about how long are we going to continue to turn over the transformative experiences of our youth to fictional characters?
Yeah.
Because life is not a sitcom, man. And our youth need people that's real in their life that are not flat.
Yeah.
That they can see and who can be their intangible ways for their transformative experiences.
Yeah. Man, it was interesting. So as I read this, I was like, man, when growing up, I was a part of this familiar conversation. They're like, where are the fathers? Where are the fathers? Fatherlessness. And I was a part of that. I experienced that growing up. And here's the thing that hit me, man. As an adult, I don't know, and it's usually black fathers that we're talking about. I don't know. I think I know maybe one black man who's not in his children's lives.
I was gonna say that, bro. I pretty much all of my African American friends, they are present,
all present in their children's
lives, right? And so I see that, and it's so the narrative doesn't fit in a lot of ways of just like this absentee deal. I know so many people who are educated, who have careers.
Yep.
Who are like present and active in so many different ways. And so I'm just like, and here's what I know from one of my first ministry positions was youth pastor. And when it became the youth pastor at an upper middle class church, and when I took that position, I became the only African American member of the church.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And it was part of this time where part of my calling where I felt like God was calling me to be a part of racial reconciliation within the body of Christ. And so I was like, man, we can't always ask someone else to make the hard change.
Yeah.
So we got to go be a part. And there was things both ways, I believe, that both communities have done to where we don't really see really good diversity within the body of Christ.
Right.
But I saw youth at the church where I was at, majority African American at that time. Before going to that church, there were youth whose fathers did have some different things going on where they wasn't there because of incarceration or whatever else.
Yeah.
But then I got to this upper middle class church that was totally a different ethnic makeup. And those youth were starving for the same experiences as the youth that I led in the other church that were in a total different socioeconomic bracket. And the reason it was their father's careers and stuff that were causing them to be absentee. Yeah, they were in the home. They were coming in and leaving a lot of times. Or they might have been going for long stretches, but instead of being incarcerated, they were on business trips all the time. They were doing this and they were out achieving. But then they would take these great vacations. They would have this really nice stuff. But I was seeing how the kids were like...
Same heartache.
The same heartache. It didn't close it. And so it's not a function of what everybody thinks a lot of times.
Right.
And then what I'm seeing also, I hear it so often in the African American community, as we're a generation out, we keep going generations, and I'm probably a generation before you kind of deal.
Yeah, definitely. We're 10 years apart.
And I remember when I was starting to get older, a lot of people in my were like, well, I want to give my kids what I never had. So we get on that hustle. Then we get the side hustle. And we're going to go to college. And then we got to get this advanced degree. And we got to get this. And then we get that. And if we can move, from the hood that we grew up in, and we can move to this neighborhood, and we can have these things. And in the midst of all that striving, thinking, man, because now our kids get to go to private school, and now our kids get to do this, and we go on these vacations that we're feeling that, we're not really solving the problem. We're just reshaping it.
Yep.
We're just putting a different filter on it.
Well, and I think it's like we don't, when you don't define the win, everything starts to feel like a loss.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, what was I actually missing? Was I missing these toys? Was I missing these experiences, or was I missing this time?
I remember before my mom got her GED and her CNA, she worked grocery store clerk jobs as a cashier, different things of that nature. And she would, from standing on those cement floors in the grocery stores all day, she would come home and she would be so tired. But even when she got her CNA, she would work these long shifts and be so tired that even when she was there, she couldn't enjoy it. My dad was a steel worker. And although I was raised by a single mom, I spent time with my dad where it was like, the time I did get spent, he was like, man, can you massage my feet for me or whatever? So it was like, but then he was like, man, I want to get a job where, man, I'm never this tired anymore. But it's like, I might not have a manual labor job.
But you still just as tired.
You can be just as tired, bro. And it's like, you can be doing so much stuff. And it's like, that's what I'm saying. Because it is so easy to replace one thing with another.
Yeah.
And not really consider like, hey, when I go do this move, is this going to help me get to where I really want to go? And so when I hear J. Cole in the song Lament Uncle Phil, right? When I hear that, there's this cry that's like, man, this still hadn't changed.
I don't have that person. You know who defined fatherhood for me? It really was. My father wasn't around. We have a good relationship now, but he wasn't around when I was growing up. And a person who really demonstrated fatherhood for me was my uncle. Now, my uncle, Vernon Leon Steele, he couldn't be around me all the time. He had his own children, got 4 kids. He had his own family, his wife, kids, and he so many people in the community that he adopted. But one thing that I saw from him was that his son was always with him. My little cousin, like my little brother, was always with him. Everything he did, he would, if his son was out of school, my uncle would patrol the neighborhood. He would go through the neighborhood. He was a health inspector for the state, and or for the city. He would go around and check out neighborhoods. He'd always drive by our neighborhood, check on his sister, check on me, and if my little cousin was out of school, my little cousin was with him. When he goes to the grocery store, my little cousin with him. Go to purchase a car, my little cousin with him. He always had him with him. And so I said, my kids are gonna be my son. And so like when my first daughter was born, I have 2 teenagers that I adopted. But when my first daughter was born, I was like, this is my son. And when she was a baby, I'm like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. I'm taking her. Her mom was like, what? I'm like, no, because my son's going to be with me. My kids are going to be with me.
You've heard me say this before. Brail, what turns any activity into discipleship? When you take somebody with you.
That's right.
Man, like, and that's the deal is sometimes we make things what they're not. And here's where it took me some maturing. I have a strong work ethic. You know who taught me that work ethic?
Your dad.
My dad. As much as many hours of therapy I've been in around issues with my dad and different things of that nature, he did. Like, there were some things that he taught me and went along. And so me maturing helped me see some of the things he did plant. Me maturing and healing and growing helped me see not just what he was not, but what he was. But here's the deal. Why is the young man in my community going to have to take 40 years of healing and therapy to be able to see what the men in his community was and not just what they were not? Because if I am bringing them along with me,
Bringing them along.
not just my kids,
Nope, that's right.
but the other ones, like that's what was, and I'm teaching them of how I'm growing and healing and how I'm starting to see people for who they are and what they were rather than what they just weren't. And then that's gonna help, I think, shortcut this process some.
Man, and I started to tear up a little bit because I thought about when I came into my kids' lives. They're 8 years old when I married their mother, and I sat down with them, and they were really afraid I was going to take their mom away. So I was a good friend, but when I became more than a friend, it was a problem. And I sat down and I had to explain to them what adoption was. They're like, what is adoption? And I explained it using the scriptures. And I started walking through how Jesus says, or how the word says that we're adopted into God's family, that God chooses and to hold himself to a standard where you can't go anywhere. You're mine now. I pay for you. I take care of you. I will walk with you for the rest of your life. How they will be adopted. And it just blew my mind when I was looking at those kids and they're just like, but what? I'm like, there's no way I'd take your mom from you. I'm just adding me to your life. And everywhere you go, I'm going to be your dad. And I want you to have my last name because when people come against you, they're going to have to come against me. And if someone wants to hurt you, they're going to have to hurt me. And when I get credibility and when I win, I want you to win. And so I want people to see me. My honor will be represented by you. Yeah. My love will be represented by you. And everything that I earn in this life will be carried on by you. And I realized, like, man, God has put that type of stamp on me, has walked with me as a father. And I have that responsibility to not just my kids, not even just my adopted kids, but to those that I see around me that need it.
And here's the deal. You know what's the next big thing to that? Because I've adopted too. Is that my kids, like, they talk about, is Uncle Brail really your brother?
You're your brother.
And I'm like, yep. And then they know Uncle Jay.
Yep.
They know Mr. Lorenzo that always give them a mint, right? And my daughter feels totally comfortable going to get a mint from Mr. Lorenzo. They know Mr. Ian and Mr. Dean. My kids not only have me, they have a community of men that pour into them and that call out what they see of God in them on a regular basis. And that's rich. I mean, just on a regular basis that know details about them. Like I last night, Trisha McCourt came over to the house. My son Silas came running from around the room, and he says, "I already know what you're gonna ask me," because she asked him the same question every time: "Who did you help today?" And so all my kids know when they see Trisha McCourt that she is gonna ask them, "Who did they help that day?" And they better have an answer ready. Right? And so that is the kind of community that my kids have available to them, man. And I think that is what we were truly searching for, not just financial relief.
Right.
And because if it was financial relief, then J. Cole, one of the top selling artists in the world, wouldn't still be making odes to Uncle Phil. And I hope that's what we walk away with from the intersection is we can be a community that not only provides opportunities for higher learning and better careers and earning potential and home ownership, but also for transformative experiences that allow for the healing and nurturing of our young minds and hearts.
Yeah. Who are you helping today? Man, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Like, comment, share, and we'll see you next time
in the intersection.